And we don't have any special guests with us besides all of you who are special, but welcome to this week's version of the Yamhill Leadership Roundtable. And with us, we have Joya Goodrum from the McMinnville Chamber of Commerce. We have Mayor Linda Watkins from the City of Carlton. We've got Councilor Kelly Minke from the City of McMinnville and Commissioner Casey Kula. Joya and I were just talking about how Yamhill County is going to be moving from the moderate risk level to lower risk level starting on Friday. So restrictions change, and probably Joya is more up to date on what things change. Sorry?
Joya must be ecstatic. Well, we all are.
It's so good to see. It's so good to see. We still have people who are hospitalized. We still have folks who continue to struggle. But as Joya and I were talking about, we do see, a reduction in case counts at the same time that we see an increase in vaccinations for the community. So, and with that, I may, since sometimes Joya has to jump off early, Joya, do you want to continue with updates? That was really the big one for the business community, but
that is huge, and thank you for that. It is such exciting news because we dropped down a level. That means more people can be in spaces together. We're actually having an in-person greeters on Friday, which I'm super excited about because we can, and our businesses are excited. So it has been a year of not being close to people, and I am so excited to get to be in the presence of other humans that I haven't seen in a while. So I feel so grateful for that. And I know our businesses are very excited about it. We've had some restaurants that have been closed all this time, and one of them on 3rd Street opened up today to their dining room. They were only doing takeout, and so it's just so amazing that we get to move in that direction. So I'm super happy about that. The other thing is the SBA has extended the period with which you can apply for PPP. So that has been good because yesterday was supposed to be you were supposed to have everything in, but they've changed that date. So that is moving forward. And there was one other thing, and I'm sorry, my brain, I didn't get a chance to write it down, but things are just looking better and the sun is shining, and it's so grateful, so grateful for everything. And thank you. It has been quite a year. And we've all suffered through it and muscled through it, really. And I'm very proud of all of us. So thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you, Joya. And Joya, I was just realizing that I think we are at the anniversary of the roundtable, which means that you and I have been getting together at least once a week for a year to get people updates and kind of trade information and figure out how to work together. And it's wonderful that we've made it to this point.
I have to say, I think this forum has been such a great opportunity for not only our community, but for the leadership within our community to really connect and understand what is happening around us and to be informed and to be able to share that information as well, and then have our community be participating in that. So thank you, Commissioner, for putting this together. And we may be the only two left that have been on this for a year. I don't know how long Councilor Menke has been on the call, and of course MCM.
Yeah, exactly. So Phil, shout out to Phil for recording us for a year now. MCM actually came to me and said, how can I help with this whole coronavirus thing? And I said, wow, this would be really helpful if you could record this for us. So, but I think I have learned a lot of things about the leadership in the community. And I feel like one of them is that Joya knows so much about what's happening in the bigger business community, right? It's like not just McMinnville focused businesses. It's like, everything that's happening all over the place. So I feel like if I need to know something, I'm like, oh, well, let's just ask Joya.
Call Joya. I am the 411. I'm not the restaurant. I am the directory. And I'm happy to play that role. Thank you. Yeah. I love being able to inform and be helpful. So thank you. Thank you for saying that. It's very sweet of you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I also learned that Mayor Hill is a really good speaker. Mm-hmm. I feel like he can just lay it all out there. Whereas I, well, in contrast, how about that?
will say this, Joy. I've reposted most of you, many of your postings, probably you more than anyone else. So.
Thank you, Councillor Menke. Thank you for saying that. I'm so happy that I get to be the person that provides that information. Just so you know, I do spend a lot of time reading and making sure that, and going to really credible sources so that we know where that, that information is good. And thank you for reposting it so that you're sharing that out, because that's really the intention. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. I not lying. That really has been very helpful.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm so happy. That makes me happy. I'm fulfilling my purpose.
Well, so one thing I did want to note too, that before we got filming, Joya and I were talking about the restaurant license fees. Do you want to update folks? Because you're a better speaker than I am, and this is really a business thing.
Sure. So the county, and I'm going to say thank you to the commissioners, because this was something that actually one of my members brought to me, because they have another business in Polk County that did this. And I brought it to the commissioners, and the commissioners said, you know what, that's an awesome idea. Let's see what we can do. So the whole idea was to either waive the fees for any restaurants in Yamhill County that pay a fee to the county to have their license, I guess, right? For this year, so that it, for some businesses it's $600, which may not seem like a lot of money, but every little bit helps. So the whole idea was to give these people an opportunity to not have to pay that. And it was just so incredibly generous of the county to be willing to step up and do that for the restaurants that really were struggling. I mean, a lot of them have been closed since December. And that's really tough. So it was good.
Yeah. Really great. And to get more information, it's on the main page of the Yamhill County the Yamhill County website, the main page, I guess. Yeah. Exactly. And this is a good example of how commissioners can't actually talk to each other outside of meetings, is that I brought it up, having gotten an email from Joya, I brought it up in commissioner meeting, and I had commissioners stare and say, I'm about like 2 days ahead of you on working on that. Which is great. It's really nice when we have that overlap.
It is so wonderful that you all work together to help our businesses. And I will speak for them. Thank you, because it means so much to them. And I know it doesn't seem like much, but it really does. Every little bit helps. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And thanks for getting that information out to people.
Yeah, you bet. The other thing, too, is just to mention, I was talking to another restaurateur who participated in the landlord-tenant commercial rental program. And it's saving that restaurant $20,000. And the landlord is still getting their 80% of the rent. So it was a win-win. Once again, that was another great program. It wasn't the county, but it was the state that put together. And it's just really so fantastic how we've come together to move this forward. Thank you.
And Joya, as a reminder, how can people access that? Is it the landlord who goes to the state?
They both have to fill out applications, but it's got to be the landlord that does it. So I would recommend a tenant speak to their landlord to see if they can make it work.
That sounds great. Thank you for that information.
Yeah, thanks.
And then I'm going to go to Amir Watkins next. Thank you for those updates. And Amir Watkins, I think, has some good news from last week to this week, right? Maybe swimming? But you're muted.
Yeah, I haven't received any confirmation from our city manager on this, but I know that they were looking into it. And especially with this change, I think we might be in much better shape on that. Had you spoken with anybody or?
I reached out to the governor's office kind of about the same time that Councillor Ward Mullen was kind of diving into it. And
right
within an hour or two, we got updated information, updated guidance.
That's great. I haven't, week has just kind of flown by. I don't even know where it went. I don't think communication sometimes is not always our strong point, but you know how that goes.
Yes.
So I'll check in with, in fact, I'll be seeing our city manager this evening. One of the things that we're doing this evening is a combined work session with the commission and the planning commission and the council to discuss the 5G placement for, the policy and everything that we need to look at for the 5G. We haven't had any requests, we haven't had anything coming into us, but we fortunately, and you guys already know that Walt is a wonderful, wonderful city attorney. And so he has kind of nudged us starting a few months ago and said, you guys need to start planning this because it's coming and Carlton needs to be ready. So we're going to be having a joint meeting with our commission this evening to start talking about what we're going to do in terms of policy and start trying to plan ahead a little bit on that. I don't know that Carlton's going to be like one of the hot spots that, the 5G folks are necessarily going to want to jump right in on, but we definitely want to be prepared for that. And it's one of the reasons we've ended up with some other problems that we've had is because we haven't had our commission prepared. So we're really working on trying to keep that communication going and keep everybody in the loop. But I think it's been one of the interesting things, just as a kind of a byproduct of what we're talking about here. One of the interesting things is that Carlton had gotten into a habit of just letting the city manager take care of everything. And it's been really difficult to kind of, in a way, break some of the staff habits on that and get communication going back within the council. I think that that's what we should be doing, but it's a job too. It takes a lot of effort. So I'm trying to think, so hopefully if the swimming pool can go and the insurance company comes out and says that, yes, we'll insure you, we'll get you covered, then we're going to have a whole bunch of happy kids. I was really worried with the spring break that we were going to see a bump in our numbers. So it was nice to see it going in the other direction. That was a relief. Other than that, let's see. This Saturday, our Public Works office is going to be having a surplus sale down there. A lot of chairs and furniture and all kinds of odds and ends and stuff like that. So that will be down at the Public Works building down, which is adjacent to Winterberg Park, the lower park. If anybody's desperate for chairs or office furniture and equipment, you might want to take a look. Let's see. This Saturday, I get to do a police ride along with our police department. This has been a year in the making. I had signed up for doing it, and we were supposed to do it on Friday, March 13th of last year, which was 2 days after we shut down the county. So we've been working along, and they finally decided, okay, you've got one shot. As long as you have at least one vaccination, we'll let you ride. So I'll be getting to spend some time with our police department, about 4 hours on Saturday evenings, just kind of cruising around. And I don't know if I'm assuming all police departments have this program, and if they do, I know my husband went many years ago and said it's just like the greatest thing for getting a good sense of what your police departments are doing. So I'm going to be trying to encourage the rest of my council to get going on that. I wanted to thank you, Casey, for the homeless solutions workshops, or not workshops, but meetings that you were doing in the last year or so. And I did get a note from Howie Harkema that he's starting up another conversation group about that. And we don't have a lot of that problem up here, but I just saw a manufactured home that sold in 10 days for $350,000 in one of the lesser upscale areas of our city. And so I figure homelessness is, it's going to hit all of us. So I really appreciate that how he's doing that, and that you kind of led the charge on that. That's about all. I haven't heard anything from the county on what they're going to be doing as far as the trail cleanup goes. I don't know if they've been in contact with basically our fire chief or not. That's probably the main contact person for that. But other than that, we are counting the days, 14 more days, and we have our new city manager. And it can't come soon enough. Our interim city manager says it can't come soon enough. So we'll just leave it at that. Anyway, that's about it from here. Thank you, guys.
Got it. Well, thank you. There are lots of things that I should, respond to and reply on, but I'll try to remember, and I'll try to do that after we talk to Councilor Menke. How about that? But yeah, lots of things that I probably should update you and the community on.
Oh.
Councilor Menke, and then what I will do is the email that I received from the governor's office around pools, I'll put it in, I think it's like linked to guidance, and I'll try to put it into the chat
great.
for everybody. And if I can't put it in there, I'll just send everybody an email when we do the YouTube link.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, Councilor Menke, who I've seen recently because we've been talking about transportation issues.
That we were, and I don't know. I almost feel guilty even having another meeting on the 30th, other than to go get it coalesced. But I thought, well, maybe we want to hang in there. And I've got an email out to Jeff Knapp on Trails in McMinnville to see if he has some further thoughts. I guess the one that's going in, ODOT is going to pay for, but in the final analysis, McMinnville will be on the hook for it. So for the 99 one. So, maybe I should push that one a little harder. It's a little hard with the mayor gone, but I need to talk to a few people, obviously. Not a great deal. I have a YCAP meeting here probably in about an hour, and for this month. This evening, we're having another goal setting for the council. That's about an hour and a half, starts at 5:30. And then the evening meeting for city council, we have a lot of airport rental agreements to determine or approve tonight. And that's about the size of it. I don't think there's a whole lot else on our agenda, but it'll probably go till 9 anyway. It usually does. I don't know. I find this whole earmarks thing very interesting. I just really wish we could have done the buses this year, but I guess that's off the plate.
Well, I appreciate your advocacy on it anyway.
Well, I did go talk to Cynthia, and she sent me information, and I'm thinking, well, if she really wants a facility, I don't know this is going to work out.
Yeah, definitely. And so Councilor Menke and I were part of a group considering what it would look like to submit a request for an earmark to Representative Bonamici for I guess it's for the next transportation bill. So we've tried to figure out what the thing would be that has full community support, and we're still working on that. And it turns out that earmarks are really like a relatively small amount of money compared to, say, like funding the bypass. So a large request would be $2.5 million. A smaller one would be $850,000. So when you're talking about sidewalks or building a new separated trail on 99 or something like that, it doesn't go far. So we have to identify something that's very well supported and also is a relatively small project.
Yeah, the thing that killed me is it would have been the 2.5 would be perfect for the buses. Oh well, but at any rate, is there any information out that they could put together for the facility, or was that pretty much not going to be something that would fly?
Yeah, I think that is definitely an option. So Yamhill County Transit Agency has, for a long time, needed an actual facility where they park the buses, they do the maintenance on them, fuel stations, that kind of deal that's safe and secured. Right now they use essentially a parking lot with a fence around it that's part of First Transit's facility for their school buses. It's not a place where you can easily maintain or wash vehicles even. So a long time need for the agency has been its own facility. So that's like Joya needs to find us the property, and then we need to get, the funding for, I was like, this is why Joya is here, to do this. But one of the challenges, for example, with having electric buses is that you can't just pull them up to the gas station and fill them up. You do have to have a dedicated facility of some kind for charging them, that's not just a parking lot with a cyclone fence around it. So we need to figure that out. But it's also for the long-term future of transit, maintaining buses properly, it's best to have that dedicated facility.
Yeah, and if you're looking at high density housing, the mass transit is one of the key elements to that, because it keeps down the parking and it provides, fairly low cost access for people to get everywhere in town. And ours is just not sufficient to do what it needs to do. So I thought this was a fabulous idea. Hopefully it will gain more traction as we go.
Right, and both the city of McMinnville's representatives of Parkway and Newburgh's expressed a lot of interest in having electric buses for the within city routes, because when they're a very low carbon transportation option, but in a community, there's no diesel exhaust. They're a lot quieter. Drivers are always more attentive because they don't have the massive vibrations. It reduces the maintenance cost of it. It's a really good option for within the city when you're constantly looking for people and stopping and starting.
Yeah, and a lot of businesses are very supportive of it too. So that was one of the things I think that actually we get a lot of support from businesses in town too because of those features.
Right. And Joya is about to jump in.
I have a question. So seriously, looking for land, where are you looking? And how much do you need?
Right, preferably in the city of McMinnville, since that's where we've set things up.
We don't have a lot of land.
I know, right?
You know that. Really understand that one, Joya, better than anybody.
I know. So,
It definitely, I suspect it would be challenging to convince the transit agency to move to a different city. But if there is if zoning allowed it, there are properties within the county. There's just not a lot of light industrial or heavy industrial, which I think is the zone that's required.
Well, if it's industrial, we do have more industrial than a lot of places. So that might be feasible. I don't know how much land it would take, though. What do you think, Casey?
Right, and that's a good thing to know because you're familiar with our stable table. Excuse me, which is the economic development organizations of McMinnville. And, we're talking a lot about an innovation center out on 18, perhaps. And I wondered if there might be some property there that could be dedicated, but it's nice to know what the acreage is that you need. And
yeah, we've got about 90 acres out there.
Right.
Maybe more than that if some of the airport land is usable.
Right. So there, that's a possibility, but it always has to pencil out, right?
Yeah.
The cost of the land versus the expensive, maintenance and everything else.
Well, at least it's just good to know, something to start talking to the mayor and the city manager and the rest of the council.
Right. Yes, exactly.
I know a lot of the people on the council are very bullish about mass transit. Certainly Sal is, so, and I know a number of other people are too. So it just gets all sorts of thumbs up on the whole thing if we can get something going. I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't really even think about where it would necessarily need to be. But yeah, so I'll talk to Heather about that.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Yeah, thank you for that. And I'll find out kind of what, I know that in this year's budget or in the 2021 budget for the transit agency, there's like concept design and facilities, like site analysis. Because it's really like, okay, here's how many buses we have, but and here's the facilities that maybe we need, but it really needs to have a clear enough plan that we can know some of the costs and at least know what kind of site is needed. But what I'll do, Joya, is I'll connect you with our transit manager. She definitely has the starting like kernel of it because it's been put off about 10 years.
It's a long time, and you also have to think about how much land do we need going forward. I would imagine we have 20 buses now. I don't know how many you have, But do we need 30 buses, right? Because as our
Oh, yeah, to
community
have an
grows-
active transit system, you're going to need more than we have now, that's for sure.
Right, exactly. And so, there's all of that would probably have to be included in that. But I'm happy, because the business perspective is really important. And I'm happy to be that voice. I feel like I am that voice. And
I think you'd get a lot of positive feedback on it. I think a lot of businesses would really like that concept.
I absolutely. And, we've already got parking issues on 3rd Street. And people complain about the parking. And this could alleviate some of that, certainly making it easier to get from one end of town to another, particularly if you don't drive.
Both towns are forced into high density housing, parking's going to continue to be a big issue in town unless we can get it down to everybody needs maybe 1 car or 1.5 cars or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know about Americans and our love of cars being able to. I'm just saying, I don't know.
Well, if you've ever lived in a city, mass transit.
I actually have lived in a city, and I know. Yeah, you pay for parking and you pay dearly for it if you have it. Yeah, absolutely. No, completely agree. Anyway, thank you. Happy to, support and help.
Yeah, that sounds good. I did the minimum necessary, which was to give our transit manager the email address of Scott Cooper, but that was as far as I had gotten with hey.
Well, I'll probably contact her again too and just ask her what she thinks an estimate of how much land would be required.
Definitely. And as part of an earmark, it would be good to keep the conversation going, even if the county and cities decide not to support this as an earmark.
Absolutely. And I think the stable table should be involved in that conversation because it is important to our economic development.
Well,
Yeah,
if we all start talking, things might happen. So cool.
Yeah. And since a lot of land, it looks, and I don't know, I mean, Kelly knows, Councilor Minke knows a lot more than me about this, but it looks like Lafayette Avenue is kind of part of a development future, so to have a lot of buses parked there just in the just overnight, it could be a lot more valuable for something else, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
there might be
sure. Yeah, no, the land I'm thinking about is out by the hospital for industrial land.
Exactly.
Okay, great. We will keep talking about this then.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you. Yes, and Councilor Minke, did you finish your updates? I feel
like finished.
Great, and we'll talk more about the transportation and transit side of things. I do like to note that Mayor Rogers from Newburgh said, "Hey, if you want to have electric buses, we can host them." So hopefully there's a follow-up conversation about that as well. A lot of the earmarks and kind of the support at the federal level comes down to whether your congressperson is really supportive of it. And Congresswoman Bonamici really, really wants to help fund safe walking paths, like safe sidewalks, safe biking, and then electrification of transit. Those are two of her big focuses when requests come to her that she can support kind of further on.
Sorry.
No, go for it.
I know we have the transit stop here in town, in the center of town. Does Newburgh have one as well?
They do not. We were, the county or transit agency was working on setting up like a smaller version of it. But my understanding is that it was in front of MAPS, on 99, just as you enter Newburgh. But there was some concern, or maybe the owner of the grocery store wasn't super excited about having a major transit stop right in front of them. And then it kind of got derailed by pandemic. So I know that the mayor of Newburgh and their city, their planning director, Doug Rex, and our transit agency are kind of working together to see what it looks like next.
Okay.
Long answer to a really short question, though.
No, it was a good answer. I wasn't sure because I'm here. I know enough about the resources here, so that was good. Thank you.
Yeah, and they're trying to get, when transit had to essentially shut down and then kind of reconfigure during the pandemic, transit ridership plummeted so much in Newburgh that they stopped having a route at all there, like a regular within the city. And so getting that back in business is a high priority going forward.
Good to know.
Yes. And then I wanted to come back to Mayor Watkins had a series of wonderful statements and comments and observations. And so the first one is that I looked at the guidance that was sent to us, I think on the Thursday or Friday. And for lower risk category counties, outdoor facilities, including pools, have a 50% occupancy rate now, which I think before it was like a maximum of 50 people in the whole space under the extreme risk category, which then applied to every other one. So I will send, it's just an email, so I'll send it on to everybody.
Oh, great, thank you. Yeah, the last that we had heard, it was, that the early occupancy was like you had to have 6 to 8 feet for each child, and with our pool, that meant you had you could have 6 kids in there, and they were kind of spaced. I'm not sure how you tell kids they've got to stay 6 feet apart in a swimming pool, but I'm sure there was. We don't even want to go there.
But yes, Councillor Watermullen seemed to think that the change was going to make it possible for the pool to open safely.
Yeah. So hopefully, I will be, like I said, I will be visiting with some folks this evening. So I'll be there about a half hour. I wonder if this means that we're going to be able to have in-person city council meetings again.
It's possible. I know that we're still.
I wouldn't expect it till June or so, not until everybody's got shots.
Your space is pretty small compared to Councilor Mankey's space too.
Yeah. Oh well, yeah, it is, and we've reconfigured it quite a bit, but I think everybody's being pretty assiduous about getting their shots, so we might be moving right along there.
Yeah, that would be interesting. For the Board of Commissioners, we have a limit of the space that it's still been that you can only have, you have to have this amount of distance between people, but then there's a maximum occupancy for spaces that are associated with government entities and offices. And that space is small enough that having staff plus commissioners in it doesn't leave a lot of room for other people. Yeah.
Well, there's no great hurry as far as I'm concerned, but I was kind of wondering about that.
It would
and
nice,
for us, what was that, Councillor?
But it just would be nice to be in person. We actually had a meeting in person, not Friday before last, and it was very nice. We were doing a goal setting thing.
Yeah, definitely. And for us, if folks don't want to wear masks, then that limits how long we can be around each other too. So we don't have to wear masks when we have a 7-hour meeting that's on Zoom.
There may be some good time controls on the mask and non-mask.
Right. That's a good point, actually. And then to go back to your comment or your question about the trail and maintenance of it, and the greater context is that Mayor Watkins sent the county an email saying, hey, our fire chief would like there to be some level of maintenance, ongoing maintenance of the corridor in the city of Carleton. And what we are of an ongoing conversation right now that we will pick up again this week about how much maintenance we spend on the trail. What does that look like? Kind of that whole, like, we own this property and we need to take care of it, but how much money are we willing to dedicate to that?
Well, and I guess with that would come how much can the city coordinate with and do? I mean, if you guys are hitting a financial limit there, maybe we can try to figure out some way to push it on through. And I think they were willing to do it last time. It was the birds. It was the bird nesting that screwed us up. So
Yes,
And I know that
it was the bird nesting, but it was also that we then lost our parks manager.
oh yeah, that was hard
I mean,
too.
I should say that the parks manager moved back to their hometown. We know where they are.
We know where they are. Yeah. Well, and then the Yamhill crew, the volunteer crew came in and did some work too. So I think there are people willing to do it. It's more a matter of figuring out who's going to do what and how much, and maybe also timing so that we're not interrupting nesting seasons. So
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I'm sure there were other things. I'm blanking on them right now. To address, but we will.
I see Representative Gomberg is here too. So
I wanted to make sure he had an opportunity to speak because a lot has happened in the legislature, even just yesterday. So welcome, Representative Gomberg. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, happy to be with you, Commissioner. Hello, everybody. Goodness. I put out a newsletter on Monday morning talking about how we were scheduled to be in Salem and on the floor voting each morning and through the noon hour before we went back to committees, and then coming back in the evenings. And we were scheduled Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night as we inched our way through the process. Of course, with the requirement in place that bills be read in their entirety before we could vote on them. And it was looking like a very long week. And I sent that out on Monday morning, and before the lunch hour was over on Monday afternoon, everything had changed. That a report was received that a member of the legislature, a member of the House, had tested positive for COVID. They abruptly canceled all of the sessions and have canceled everything at least through next Monday. So committees are continuing to meet, and they're continuing to forward bills to the floor, but no bills are being voted on. And that's where we are.
Wow.
On a personal note, I'll tell you that I was able to get a test early this morning. I'm waiting for the results, and I'll be hunkered down here at home doing a lot of Zoom meetings until I hear anything back.
Well, how are you feeling?
I'm a legislator, and the legislature is in session. What could be better than that?
I guess I meant you were possibly exposed to the coronavirus.
I'm feeling fine. Thank you for asking. I'm feeling fine. The biggest news coming down the pipeline is the details beginning to emerge on the America Rescue Plan and the dollars that are being sent out from the federal government to our schools, to our cities, to our counties, to our state government, to our small businesses, to unemployed workers. An astounding amount of money coming our way. And from a legislative point of view, that's going to give me the resources that I need to balance our state budget and to keep our current programs intact, maybe even have some money left over for some new programs. We are already looking at some new expenditures for housing and homelessness, for childcare, and for summer programs for our kids, which includes learning programs to help those that may have fallen behind, activities for those that have time on their hands, childcare to help parents out that are struggling. But, I ran some numbers because, this is the kind of guy I am. And I took the report from the League of Oregon Cities on how many dollars were going to each of our cities. And then I divided it by the number of people that are listed as the population of those cities. And what that came back to me is an indication that each city was going to receive in the neighborhood of $200 per capita. $200 per capita, except for one city, the city of Portland, which is getting $337 per capita. I had a conversation this morning with the governor's office saying, what the heck is going on there? why is Portland getting more money, and what makes the folks in Washington, D.C. think that our rural communities and even our medium-sized towns like McMinnville don't need that same level of commitment? So know that this is something that I'm making a stink about. It doesn't smell right to me, which I guess is another indication that I don't have COVID because my sense of smell is working. But something doesn't smell right about that, and I'm trying to get a little more information for all of us.
Well, I did note that I didn't run the numbers, Representative Gomberg, but I did look at it, and I thought $213 million for Portland is a lot of money compared to $7 million, I think, for the city of McMinnville. So thank you for looking
and where
at
that gets tricky is they get those dollars directly, but we also develop state programs. And depending on how you organize a program, that money may end up having more of an urban focus, or it may have a rural focus, or it may have a suburban focus, depending on how you write the program. And so my concern is the federal government's already decided where to send the checks. Now, how do we spend our Oregon dollars, and does it reinforce the money that's already going to the big urban centers, or do we get it out into some of our suburban and rural communities?
Yes, absolutely. And I think I know I'm not going to speak for the cities, but I know that at least county staff and I have been discussing, being very careful about spending the money that's coming directly to us because of all these other programs that you mentioned. Like if early childhood education and childcare access is important to us, let's make sure that we're not spending money that's available through another source, right? So we will do our best to put those dollars to use in rural Oregon.
Well, and as you well know, these are one-time dollars. So it's not like you create a new program that you got to keep funding. It's more like you can fix a water system or repair a building. I mean, one-time dollars have one-time applications. So I know that goes into your thinking. Yes.
Absolutely.
It looks like a question.
Joya.
Unmute yourself.
Thank you. It's really good to see you, Representative. So my question is, a community gets money, what can they, that money can't be stuck in a savings account, right? It must be, is it a use it or lose it kind of thing? Can they set it aside and save it for something else?
The last time we got federal dollars, there was a time frame on it, and we had to spend it quickly. The last batch had to be spent before the end of the year. And if it wasn't, there was the potential that we had to send it back. You can imagine how much politicians like that, sending money back. I have not read all of the sideboards, all of the requirements and restrictions on the new dollars coming in, but I would expect that it does have a limited lifespan.
Yeah, I thought most of it had to be spent by December 31st, 2024. We had like 4 years that had come in 2 increments.
But it may depend on the program, Kelly.
Yeah, that's a good point. The money that's coming directly from the Treasury to cities or the money that's coming directly from Treasury to counties, and then the money that's going to cities through the state, I think is that round of funds that need to be spent by the end of 2024. Yeah. And it looks to me like it's a much broader range of eligible expenses, which is encouraging too. Some of the small cities have a real need for upgrading their water and sewer systems, and I'm hopeful that they can do it or can do it in conjunction with the county. And Joya has a comment on that.
I actually have another question. Thank you. So with regard to the kicker, we heard that the state was looking at revenue that could be impacted because it was more than had been budgeted for. So are we looking at a kicker coming back? And how is that going to impact the state revenue? The state, programs and things like that.
Okay. Well, let's just quickly review what the kicker is. Adopted by the voters of Oregon, it's a requirement that says if we bring in more money than we expected, that we have to give it back to the taxpayers of Oregon. And more recently, we rather than sending a check, we changed the program so that we use that as an offset to your income taxes, either increasing your refund or decreasing your payment. So when I say that we bring in more money than we anticipated, we do revenue forecasts. Our state economist sits down and says, here's how much money I think you're going to get. And we use that to build our budgets. And so the economists projected a level of income, and now it looks like we're going to bring in more money than we expected. And that then engages the kicker. Now, ironically, we are bringing in more money than we expected, but we still are having to base our budgets on the amount of money we thought we were going to get. Did I say that in a way that's clear? So two things are, you asked, is there going to be a kicker and how does it impact our spending? And the answer is that there is going to be a kicker, and we're still looking at reducing budgets. At the same time, we're giving money back to Oregonians. So if that strikes you as a little awkward, well, it strikes me as awkward as well. But that's the way the statute is currently crafted. We were expecting budget reductions. We've been planning for that. With the new federal dollars, it looks like we'll be able to balance our state budgets. And yes, there will still be a kicker.
Thank you. And I also, I don't know if you're, I'm sorry, on the e-board, but I saw that another 100 million for the tenant and commercial real estate. And thank you. That has been a huge impact to our restaurant community, particularly. So I just want to say thank you for making that happen.
Well, thank you. I'm frustrated that it took as long as it did to I started to say kick in, but that's maybe I shouldn't use that phrase. We passed that just before the session convened because the emergency board meets only when the legislature is not in session. But we spent a lot of money in the emergency board in the week before legislature convened, and you say, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why don't you let the whole legislature do it? But the answer is when the legislature spends money, it's got to go through the House, it's got to go through the Senate, it's got to go through committee, has to be signed by the governor, and then usually takes effect 90 days after the legislature has adjourned. So we passed out $100 million for rent and mortgage support for small businesses in January so that we could start spending that money in February rather than run it through the legislature and be able to spend it in August. The good news is that is beginning to take effect now, and I think it is making a difference for people who have been struggling to pay their rent at a time when COVID or the wildfires have forced them to close down.
It's a great program, and one of my restaurants actually mentioned to me that they were talking with their landlord, and it's going to save them $20,000. So that is an enormous savings. So thank you for making that happen.
Yeah, well, I had help. As much as I'd like to take full credit, I did have help, but thanks for saying so.
Well, you were part of the solution, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I have to pause and make sure I'm saying this right, but I believe I'm the only Yamhill County legislator who was on the e-board.
We're grateful that you were there.
Yeah, and that's Senator Broblin was on it. Is that correct?
Well, yes. Yeah.
But he's no longer here.
Technically, I'm correct, but you're right. I should have mentioned that he was on the e-board at the time that decision was made. One of his last votes.
That's right. And I haven't bugged him since because I want to give him a little space to be a private citizen. But thank you for that.
You
and
bet.
Councillor Menke had another comment or question for you.
I'm just curious. I know at least a number of years back, we, instead of doing the kicker, we put the money aside for, I think, schools. Is there any opportunity to do something like that? Maybe to do some more additional assistance or something?
Wow. We don't have a whole lot of flexibility in redirecting the kicker. There's a bit of flexibility, but I don't think there's much political appetite for it, quite frankly. People are very protective their kicker payments, and you redirect it to something even as critical as schools, and you do so at your political peril. So I have not heard any conversations about redirecting the kicker.
Could always bring it up yourself. And there's always that homeless opportunity out there. I mean, housing is a huge deal right now.
Well, yeah, and there's some things going on there as well. Before I run, and I do have another meeting coming up, and I'm sure you're all busy as well, I'll remind you there's one more opportunity to make comments about redistricting. Where should legislative lines be drawn? Where should congressional districts be drawn? Every 10 years, we sit down and look at how population has changed and whether we need to make adjustments in the boundaries of our various districts. And there are requirements in the statute. We look for what we call communities of interest, grouping similar kinds of concerns together in the same districts. And we look at using natural and established boundaries like highways and rivers and mountain ranges. Some things we cannot consider, like the number of Republicans or Democrats in a district is not something we can look at. We also can't look at individual legislators. So it's possible that you could draw new boundaries that would put two incumbent legislators into the same new district, or draw lines and leave one out. I mean, there's all kinds of dynamics in play here, but I think it's critically important that we take a look at how lines are drawn to make sure that we have a voice in Salem after the next election takes place with these newly crafted districts. And there will be one more public hearing on all of this before they sit down and start drawing the lines, which, by the way, is going to be really messy this year because the census is running so far behind schedule. The legislature is supposed to have their first draft of a plan together in July, and we don't expect to have the census numbers until September. So how does that all work? Smarter people than me are going to need to figure that out. And I think most of them are wearing robes and sitting on a bench because there are now court cases filed on how we're going to deal with the lack of information as we move forward with the requirement that we draw these lines.
Do you have any idea when that meeting is?
I should. I'm thinking April 8th. Does that sound right?
You know, I'll look it up too, and I'll make sure that I'll put it on the follow-up email for Roundtable. But yes, we should get it out to our community members as well. There were folks at the last one. I confess that I had a conflict, but I believe that Representative Gomberg was represented there.
Yep, and I'll be speaking at the next one. I thought it was on a Saturday. That may make it the 10th. We'll have to go look that up.
Okay, great, thank you. And I have to leave here at 2:00 as well. So, if we have, are there other questions for Representative Gomberg? Okay, great. It's really great to have you here. Thank you for joining us. And even if redistricting means that you no longer include part of Yamhill County, I suspect that you and I will keep communicating.
I'll keep the back channels open, Commissioner. I'm happy to do so. I'm happy I could join you today. I was supposed to be on the floor of the House voting. Guess what? There is no floor of the House today. So there you have it. Keep doing good things. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. And I did want to note for folks that we do have a couple of vaccine-related issues that are news for the county. You know, last week we had Director Manfred on explaining that the very exciting news that we're looking at a 4 to 5-fold increase in doses on a weekly basis. And we actually got three times more doses this last week than we had been getting. This week that we're in right now. And then we expect an additional increase going next week. So we are rapidly approaching the point where demand is the issue rather than supply, which will have its own challenges. And this is where I'll enlist everybody here and on our regular roundtables to talk with folks about whether they are interested, whether they're willing to get a vaccine dose, because that really will be the next step of challenge. which I feel like Councillor Menke asked about last week. So way to prepare us for this conversation. But with that change in vaccine supply, Yamhill County joined 13 other counties in saying that we're ready to start vaccinating what we call Group 6 folks. And so that includes agricultural and food processing workers. That includes people who are homeless. It includes all pregnant women over 16. And then includes anybody over 45 and over who has an underlying health condition. And there's a few other categories in there. But we were finding we are up. The number of seniors and elders that we vaccinated is higher than the statewide average. And we've seen a lengthening of time to filling the appointments that public health has available, which suggests that there's waning demand for the doses we have available. And the county, like other places, wants to keep that rate as high as possible, right? The fastest number of shots in arms will get us to a point where the pandemic is really a thing of the past, but we have to maintain that really high rate, if that makes sense, especially with the variants that we're seeing in the community.
So should I be putting that out on social media now that we expect it to go? It was up 3-fold this week and should be up to 4 or 5-fold next week. You know, people 45 and older, are you interested in getting this done? Then you need to call county health.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did you can only do so many Facebook posts before people.
Yeah, I know.
They don't see it if they don't see it. But yes, so the county's vaccine weekly update is out there and available. It explains the process. Unfortunately, we've had to pivot again.
Go and link to yours, correct?
You certainly can. We've had to pivot again to how we do registrations and how we connect with people to make appointments, because there are so many more people who are eligible now and going forward. So if you go to the county's website, the COVID vaccine website, you'll see a really clear explanation of who's now eligible and how you get your appointment. But it's complicated by the fact that and it's wonderfully complicated by the fact that there are now pharmacies who are regularly providing doses, as well as travel partners, Virginia Garcia, and all the primary care clinics. It's a good problem, but it's
it was really kind of depressing to read that they had to re-register and stuff, but they hadn't had a shot yet. So
I have a question. So the pharmacies, is it the Johnson & Johnson single dose, or is it the Moderna, the Pfizer? Is it all of them? AstraZeneca? I don't know. I kind of lost track.
Yeah, let me, I will pull it up and provide an answer from the email. The commissioners get a weekly email from the governor's office about how many doses are coming in and where they're going. But going forward, we're going to have additional doses of Johnson & Johnson, as well as the Pfizer and Moderna.
Oh, good. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. That's all I needed to know. Thank you.
The Johnson & Johnson is it's great to have that one for folks who are homebound, and especially for people who are, folks who are homeless, for example. It's a much simpler process to connect with somebody once rather than hoping to connect with them again.
Right. That's a good point.
Because right now it's like a 6-week thing for you get your first shot, then your second shot a month later, and then you got 2 weeks after that. That's a long time.
Yes, and in fact, it's been challenging. When a federal judge ruled that Oregon had to vaccinate its prisoners who were held in Department of Corrections, each county then really had to look at, well, the folks who are held adults in custody in our county jails, should they be vaccinated as well? And here in Yamhill County, the stay is really short. So for somebody who might need to, when Moderna is the only thing that's available, you can't get that second dose. So there's very little protection that's created by having them vaccinated while they're on site. But with the Johnson & Johnson, it's a much tighter window, right, from going from dose to full protection. And so that's been more helpful. You get a little of the inner workings of the county at that. Okay, I have to go. Are there any last thoughts for this week? And it's great to have all of you here. Thank you.
Thanks
way to get us, for our anniversary.
Can't believe it's been a year. Anyway, glad we continue to do this. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for joining us every week. And remember out there, these folks work for you. And if you need something, reach out to one of us. And we will see you next week.
Okay.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you so much.
Bye. Thanks, everybody. Good to see you.